Hello and welcome to Rotted Reviews, and today I'm going to be tackling a movie that's been on my to-watch list for a long while, and I'm very excited about this one, the 2021 movie, The Sadness. Before I get into this review, I just want to say that if you like my videos, if you've been digging my content, to please click like and subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want to support me further, please consider joining my Patreon. Click the link below, just take a look. The lowest tier starts at $1. We have a lot of exclusive benefits, Discord access, watch parties, weekly vlogs, all sorts of good stuff. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get on to the review. So this is a movie, like I said, that's been on my to-watch list for a while. It's been on my radar. I've been very excited about it, and I'm very pleased to report that it will be coming to Shudder US and possibly a lot of other countries on May 12th. In the meantime, this has been hitting some of the international festival circuits and generating a whole lot of buzz behind it, which is how it wound up on my radar. And if you're like me and you can't simply wait until May, there are some methods in which you can go about watching it now. Most notably, there is a Blu-ray available only on Amazon Germany that I've been able to find. But for anybody else, I would just simply recommend waiting until May. It will be absolutely worth the wait. So The Sadness is a 2021 movie from Taiwan, which is the feature-length directorial debut of 𝗘𝗾𝗵𝗺, the writer-director of the film. And the long and short of it is we have two characters, a boyfriend and a girlfriend, that wind up kind of going about their day, and in the course of that day being split apart, she goes to work, he stays home, and all hell breaks loose all across the city with this viral infection turning people into brutal monsters. Now, I've heard a lot of people talk about this in the scope of a zombie apocalypse, and I guess I can kind of see a little bit where that's coming from, but that's really sort of inaccurate. There is an infection level thing going around that is very prevalent in a lot of virus zombie movies, but these people aren't dead, nor are the dead being risen. There's not actually any zombie elements of this, as well as the fact that they aren't turned into mindless walking entities. They are very cognizant, they are vocal, they are verbal, they are intelligent, and they are brutal. Basically what this is a viral component that when somebody is infected, alters their brain chemistry to the point where they are simply acting on their most brutal, selfish, and sexual desires. Basically, anybody that has this virus wants to turn into the most sadistic, vicious, murderous, skin-peeling killer in the world, as well as just the horniest person ever. So there's a word that I really can't verbally use on YouTube for the sake of keeping my channel intact. Suffice it to say, it starts with an R. You know what I'm talking about. That's a very prevalent aspect of this, so major trigger warning. This film is brutal. And that kind of gets me to the point of this movie. So here's the thing, is I have seen bloodier movies, gorier movies, more sadistic movies, and more brutal movies. But with The Sadness, this really kind of comes close on each of those categories, and I think it may top the list as far as all of the categories. See, I've seen bloodier in terms of things like Tokyo Gore Police, but that's awfully silly. That kind of revels in a lot of that with campy level of, when somebody's legs get cut off and they start flying around the room on jets of blood from where their stumps used to be, swinging a sword around, that's just stupid fun. Nothing about The Sadness is stupid fun. This is brutal, this is visceral, and it delights in it, but not in any sort of wink and a smile campy way. And that honestly makes this a very difficult watch. I found this to be fairly nauseating. My partner actually came in while I was halfway through watching it, asking if I was hungry for dinner. I'm like, you know what? I'm really not. If I had any appetite, the sickness did completely destroy it. I was just not willing to eat to that. And I've done this channel for 3.5 years now. I've reviewed over 500 movies, maybe over 600. I haven't done a count lately. My sensitivity level to this kind of thing is pretty darned high. I have a very high threshold for what will actually turn my stomach or make me say wow, and this movie continually challenged it and then topped it. So even though this movie doesn't delight in its gore, it's, like I said, very brutal. It's very, very mean. This is a cruel movie. I found myself as a gore hound, as somebody that loves having my expectations and my thresholds challenged, I found myself delighting in it in spite of myself. I honestly kind of felt guilty considering just how cruel this movie was, that I was actually enjoying myself in just how constantly my threshold kept getting blown out of the water. And that's the thing, is every step of this movie was a constant surprise because there were so many instances. First of all, this movie really takes no time at all to really get going. And once it does, it is an absolute roller coaster ride all the way to the end. Very, very few lulls. And any particular situation, any particular scene, I could pause and I can think, whoa, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen with this? And that would be the fun thing about it, is I would be wrong. The worst thing that I could think of would simply not be on the table. It would find a way to surprise me with something even worse. The absolute sadistic nature of the people that are turned and the stuff that was coming out of their mouth and the actions that they were doing was some of the most horrific elements I've ever seen brought to screen, as well as once they actually did start to act on them, it was just some of the most brutal, gory, bloody elements. I mean, so many serious kudos to the technical category of this one. The special effects, the practical effects, the makeup effects were just incredible with this. And they had to have had a lot of them. I can't imagine just how much Karo syrup went into this movie. I really do love movies that have a good balance to them. You'll see me oftentimes talk about films that, do a good balance of characters and motivations and conflicts and resolutions and development and growth and so forth. I think that there's something kind of different on the table here. There's something kind of this is just pure. This is pure distilled, brutal, sadistic chaos. And even though it was one of the most unbalanced movies I've ever seen, I still found myself loving this one in just how unapologetically truthful it was with itself. This was trying to be nothing more than it was, and as far as why I include the intent category on this movie is exactly why. This gets a full 25 points in the intent category. I am unashamed and unreserved about giving all the intent points on this one, because everything that it was trying to do, it succeeded and then some. Whether or not that's a good thing, whether or not that's your cup of tea, that's entirely up to you and your sensibilities. But, I think this would be a very challenging watch for a lot of folks. Let me put it this way. There are movies that I will expose my friends to. My friends that don't necessarily like horror movies. If I can find a movie that actually has a fairly good dramatic plot with some good character moments, and I know that it's somewhat light on the gore, Game of Thrones-esque kind of thing, as far as the brutality goes, then I will introduce my friends to it. But I'll keep their sensibilities in mind. I don't want to be the kind of edgy jerk that blindsides my most cherished loved ones. But at the same time, I'll kind of dig into that knowledge base and try to find something that they would like. I would never show any of my friends The Sadness. Ever. If they weren't into gore, if they weren't into horror, this one is completely off the table. There is no way. And for my friends that do like horror, I'm going to have some questions for them, such as, okay, you like horror movies. What about gore? What about gore specifically? Because, damn. But here's the interesting thing about The Sadness, though, is I've seen movies that are very exploitative. Films that will take a concept like the R word and just try to capitalize on it and try to really do a laser line focus on it and do a purposeful shock of the audience to the point where it actually feels really grotesque. And I've never been a fan of those. I've never been a fan of movies that really just did that for the sake of doing that really pushed the envelope for the sake of churning the stomach. But this movie, in its purity of what it was trying to do, I don't think it ever really felt exploitative to that degree. Some of the revelry of the special effects, some of the scenes and how over the top they went, it almost went so far beyond the point that, I don't know, it was something that never actually hit that mark for me that other films have, in which I actually felt ethically compromised by watching it. That wasn't the case with this one. Hello there. Sorry to interrupt. This is Editing Mike. I wanted to stop and break in just a little bit here. I think I was having a little bit of difficulty finding the vocabulary for what I was trying to say on this particular instance, and I think that it's sensitive enough that it warrants a little bit of clarification. So I think there are two main aspects to the sadness in terms of what could be exploitative. There is the gore and the violence and the viscera, and then there's also the violence of the sexual non-consent aspect. And it is absolutely exploitative in the former. I never got the impression that it was exploitative in the latter, in the same way that in thinking of other films such as Late Night Trains, House on the Edge of the Park, movies like that, that are exploitative to that degree and with that subject matter that does churn my stomach. The thing that sets the sadness apart is because it feels exploitative on the former. The best way I can really explain it is whereas some movies would really capitalize on the dirt and the grime and the grunts and the squeals and the terrible and awful details and the dirt under the fingernails and the breaking of the fingernails and all sorts of other horrible, horrible details it will focus on and revel in and keep long shots on. It will be the bread and butter, the suffering of the victim. And that's not the case with the sadness. The case with the sadness is there's way too many victims to be lingering. We're done with this one, move on to the next. We have a lot more gore to put on screen. The folks that are turned and are going through this thing are very explicit. And the actions that they do are very explicit. But it's all in the name of the gore and the viscera and the brutality, as opposed to other exploitative films, especially coming out of the 70s and the early 80s that I've seen. So back to the review. Sorry, I'll stop interrupting. I don't know. I just kind of got the impression that this was, at the end of the day, almost a love song for the people that simply like blood and gore and brutality in their movies. And it never felt like it was lacking in any plot or any character development or anything along those lines, because I don't think it was really trying for that. But at the same time, it never really felt like a film or anything like that either. There was there was almost a sense of fun in the mayhem that was ensuing on screen. And I think that's one of the things that makes this film so challenging is I'm honestly having difficulty giving it a blanket recommendation because I don't think this is a movie that everybody should watch. Everybody's sensibilities are going to be very different. And if this pushes my limits, then I know that it's going to far exceed a lot of folks. And the things that I found to be fun and exhibiting a sense of revelry in its brutality is going to be way past the mark for other folks, and they're not going to find it fun at all. As well as the things that were coming out of the mouths of the infected folks as far as the stuff that they were saying, because holy damn, it was not pleasant. It was not a good time. They weren't, it was rough. So this is a tough one as far as me making any kind of recommendations for it. I enjoyed it through and through. I enjoyed having my expectations continually surpassed. I enjoyed being continually surprised. I enjoyed being revolted in that manner. Not everybody will. And if you think that you are of the fortitude that you can handle this, then I say give it a whirl. I'm looking forward to May. I'm so looking forward to May 12th and seeing how the community responds to this one, because it's not an easy watch. And I'm very pleased that this is going to be hitting Shudder. I'm very pleased that this is going to be hitting a lot of people's eyeballs. I think that it's going to encourage a lot of conversation. That's honestly one of the things that I love most about horror movies, is how it generates and fuels good conversation. And that's really what I'm interested in more than anything else, is to see the tone of that conversation once it actually, hits the general public. But for me, having been doing this for so long and having seen so many of these movies, I was very pleasantly surprised to find a film that did legitimately challenge me. So take that for what you will. If you want to take that as a recommendation, then I'm not going to stop you. Like I said, on a technical and an intent level, high marks. I can't recommend it enough on those levels. It's just if you can actually make it past the brutality of the viscera and the words, There you go. But that should about do it for this review. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, please, again, click like and subscribe. If you want to support me further, my Patreon link is down below. Starting tier is $1 a month. At least check it out. So thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you in the next review. Remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.